Owen Abbas Hussain here from FightHype.com, and I'm here.
FightHype.com.
I've been after you for so long, Adam, man. I caught you at an event, tried grabbing you there. You've been a busy man. You don't have time no love for us, man.
I know, but H made sure that I came and gave you some time now, so I have no choice.
Adam, how are we doing today? How's things? How's life?
Yeah, good. Happy.
Let's talk about the bill. Joshua Parker, two of your fighters on there. First of all, Ryan Burnett, world champion, WBA champion. What do you make of the whole situation with the IBF and him having to vacate for this?
It's the business. It's not the first time I've seen this. Won't be the last. Every governing body has their rankings and their mandatory challenges, and sometimes you end up with mandatory obligations at the same time, and then you have to make a choice. And that's just the situation he had. It was one or the other. And because I think Eddie had already been speaking with Parejo anyway, and that he'd been at number one for quite a while, we went this route.
And obviously not looking past Parejo because he is a mandatory challenger and he's put himself in that position. But what is the ultimate aim with Ryan? Is it just to unify the bantamweight and then move up? First of all,
let me stop you there because you've already answered your own question. There is nothing until he's dealt with Parejo.
Okay, fair enough. But what do you make of the division? You've got great fighters in the division. First of all, you've got Jamie McDonald flying over to Japan to fight Inoue. How do you see that fight playing out, actually?
Well, everyone's high on Inoue, and they should be, right? Because he's proved that he's an excellent fighter. But if there is anyone that's going to give him some problems with his style, his experience, his toughness, his work rate, and the little subtleties that he does with his game now behind a basic style, it's going to be Jamie. I know Jamie well, and I know how competitive he is and how effective he is at what he does. So don't be surprised if Jamie McDonald surprises you.
I just want to talk about that sort of situation with the McDonalds, especially Jamie. Are they very, very underrated fighters?
Jamie and Gavin?
Jamie especially.
Both of them are. But time shows everything, right? Time shows everything. And Jamie McDonald has now proved with 6 world title defences, I think it is. And he's beaten some good fighters in those defences. That now all of a sudden everyone's like, okay, well, we've got to give him the respect. But even whilst giving him the respect he's due, he then comes to his next fight, oh, well, Inoue is going to beat him. Well, you've already made that mistake once before by not giving him the respect because he doesn't have a showy style. Don't be surprised if he forces you to respect him again after the Inoue fight.
What do you make of Zolani Tete? I can remember a couple of months ago he put something on his social media where he put out something that he wanted to fight Ryan or something along them lines. I know Frank Warren did have spoke about it before, that they want the fight with Ryan, but what do you make of Zolani Tete as a fighter? Very
good fighter, tall southpaw, good boxer, good puncher, experienced, strong, well balanced. He's got excellent ingredients, and it's a fight that I can see happening in the future. But like I said, nothing matters until Ryan's beaten Parejo on Saturday.
Let's go to your other fighter, Josh Kelly. There's a lot of talk about him. There's all these videos. I speak to Josh once in a while. There's all these videos that have been edited on YouTube about him. Already, he's only had a couple of fights, but people are impressed by his movement, by his hand speed, whatever else. 2018, what does it hold for him?
Well, aesthetically, Josh is an interesting fighter to watch, right? Because of the moves that he has and the skills he has, his style. But I want people to realise actually the level that this young fighter can achieve. He has such an incredible IQ, and he's so talented that he needs now these challenges. In his 6th pro fight, he needs a former world champion who's coming to win as a challenge, because in his 5 fights before, it's like, yeah, he's a great looking prospect. He's a prospect. Well, he needs to go from prospect to an achiever, and because he has this ability, he needs to be challenged. And that I'm most excited about people realising not how good a prospect he is, but how good a fighter he is. And Saturday night is a good example of that, because I expect Josh, like he always does, to find the answer very early in the fight to Carlos Molina. But the thing is, with somebody like Carlos Molina, you have to keep repeating and finding that answer for 10 3-minute rounds. You just can't just do it once in the first round and hope that the fellow gives up because he ain't got the answer. It's to constantly have that level of challenge for the 10 rounds. Now, he's had that in the gym. He's sparred some excellent fighters, and he's been doing 15 rounds in sparring as well to mature his concentration, so that when we give him this 10-round challenge against a former world champion, the concentration factor isn't a factor. And now he can just keep repeating the skills that he's got and show the grade that he is.
I follow yourself, Josh, Ryan on Instagram, and it does seem like you've got a real good synergy between yourselves, you know, between all three of you, that there is a good bond between yourselves. Talk to me about your sort of relationship with both fighters.
Well, I think we don't analyse it. It just seems to be very natural, and that's it. So, and I don't want to start thinking about it and overanalyzing it, because then I might think, hang on a second, no, I don't like that about him, and then it all changes. The energy that we have when we're together is a positive energy. It's a challenging environment, and with Michael Connon as well. And it's a challenging environment where they feed off each other. And we also have Charlie Edwards in the gym, and Charlie has upped his levels. Lucien Reed has upped his levels because of the level of challenge that they're bringing to each other. And as a coach, that's a really satisfying thing to have, this level of competition. And if you enjoy your time together as well, which I do, I've got to be grateful for it.
Adam, I can't let you leave without talking about the heavyweight division. You've been in the heavyweight division before with David Hay, but talk to me about Joshua Parker. How's that going to go in your eyes?
Well, I think if Parker doesn't get overwhelmed by the occasion and overwhelmed by the physical challenge that Anthony Joshua poses, it's potentially Anthony Joshua's most difficult challenge. If the fight gets past the first 4 or 5 rounds, then it's really going to be an interesting fight, because I think Joseph Parker is a very underrated boxer. He just doesn't have the experience yet at this level, and that's an unknown, and he's got to prove that. We know that Joshua's not going to be overwhelmed by the occasion, and he's not overwhelmed by a challenge. He's not overwhelmed by getting put down. So he's ticked those boxes. Now Parker looks like he's got the potential to tick those boxes, but because you've got the proven one over the one that hasn't quite proved it yet, you have to go with the proven element. Having said that, don't be surprised if the fight's a lot more competitive than people are giving it credit for.
And if AJ was to win, everyone wants that fight with him and Wilder. First of all, what do you make of Deontay Wilder, his style, you know, his reign as a champion as well?
Well, I know Deontay because he's come over on a couple of occasions to help us out with sparring. The first time as a novice pro, the second time as someone who was prepared to see where he was at in sparring. And as ungainly as he looks sometimes, he's very effective, very heavy-handed, and he punches ferociously. So if that fight happens with AJ, it's literally one where you can't afford to blink, because you're going to miss something. And if that fight does happen, either way, it's going to go very quickly.
Adam, I just wanted to ask you about one of your former fighters who's in the final of the World Boxing Super Series, George Groves. How do you rate his sort of progression, analyse his progression as a champion and him getting to the final of the World Boxing Super Series?
I think the final now with Callum Smith is a chance for him to prove not just that he's a champion, but where he's at as a champion, because Callum will be the best technical challenge that he's had yet, I think. I remember when they sparred, and it was a very even spar quite a long time ago, and I expect the fight to play out like that spar did. Okay. And it's going to be an interesting fight.
Can you talk about that spar to us? Sorry. You got to be cheeky and ask, otherwise you don't get it. Another thing, he beat Chris Eubank Jr. in the semi-finals. Looking at Chris, and a lot of people are saying in the sport that he's got the skills, but maybe he needs some sort of guidance, a trainer, somebody above him to show him the right ways. And obviously we know you had some communication with him back in the day. Do you believe that's the sort of case with Chris Eubank Jr., that he does need that trainer to guide him?
I don't know. Some fighters develop and grow with guidance, and some fighters get worse when people try to guide them. And he may just be that way, that in being susceptible to being coached might take another element away from him. He can fight. He can certainly fight. He needs to add some things to his game. If he adds those things, he'll be an effective force. I'd like to know if he can still make middleweight, because that would be interesting. But he was, in the fight with Groves, I felt that he was just found wanting in terms of having... He knew that he had a jab to deal with, but he didn't deal with it. And once you take the head guards off and the sparring gloves off, and it's just a 10-ounce glove with a naked head, all of a sudden the jabs that you can afford to take in sparring, you can't afford to take in a fight. And it was respecting that one element that I think played a big factor in the fight.
And then whilst I've got you, I've got to talk to you about another fight. I'm sorry about this. I know it's dragging on 10 minutes, but the World Boxing Super Series final cruiserweight has been amazing. Well, the tournament's been amazing for the cruiserweights, but you got two big fighters, Gassiev and Usyk. How do you see that fight playing out?
I'm going to go with Usyk because he has that amateur pedigree as well. Gassiev is an excellent champion, but I just think that Usyk's skill level will be the difference between them, and I do see him winning a points decision. And although the rounds will be quite close, I think the scores will be quite wide.
Finally, what message do you want to give out to the fight fans, the guys who are going to be tuning on Saturday to obviously watch Josh Kelly and Ryan Burnett? What do you want to say to everyone?
Well, British boxing has never been as high as it is now. British boxing is, in terms of its popularity, in terms of the support that it's getting from everyone that's watching it, is the biggest in world boxing. It's why you've got guys having to come over here now. It's why our fighters are getting the opportunities that used to go to the Americans and South Americans. And that's because of the support of television, because of the support of the fans. If people don't want to watch it, it doesn't have a value. And so because everyone wants to watch it, we're now in a thriving business and a thriving industry and a thriving sport. So everyone that's in the sport needs to be grateful for everyone that watches it and not take them for granted. So we've got to thank them.
Adam, once again, thank you very much for talktofight.com, and hopefully we get to catch you again and again and again.
Not too soon. Don't get boring.
Thank you very much, Adam.